Ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel. It's getting crazy out here, people. The Great Reset continues. The "you will own nothing and be miserable" agenda has officially accelerated. The US debt officially crossing 100% of GDP, meaning the country now owes more than it produces in an entire year. There's no world war going on right now. This is just standard. This is the new normal. The last time something like this happened was during World War II. There's no once-in-a-century crisis at the moment right now. No world war going on right now, and yet and still, public debt is sitting at $31.27 trillion, with GDP sitting at $31.22 trillion, while total debt is past $39 trillion. Okay? We owe a lot of money to those Decepticons. Just a few months ago, it hit $38 trillion. So this debt is exploding, and it's exploding fast. The government is spending $1.33 for every $1 it brings in, running a projected $1.9 trillion in deficit, with insiders warning this is uncharted territory, and projecting debt to hit 108% of GDP by 2030 and 120% by 2036. They're calling this completely unsustainable. And right alongside that, you've got energy starting to break too. Brent crude passed $120 a barrel for the first time since June 2022. And if you look at the chart, it doesn't show it moving slow either. Straight vertical. Candle after candle with barely any pullback. This signals total instability, people, lining up perfectly with what's happening globally, where Asia is dealing with one of the worst energy crises in its history. Europe is down to weeks worth of jet fuel. That's right, no fuel but unlimited chemtrails, it seems. That's right, they might be using 0-point energy to run the chemtrail jets overhead. You never know. You know what? Maybe they're using advanced aircraft that look like saucers to rain down poisons on the people. Anyone ever think of that? Maybe they have developed advanced physics-defying craft and they use it to accelerate the Great Reset agenda. Maybe that's why the government themselves are telling you they're aliens. The craft move in impossible ways, clearly from another planet. What if it's something else? Debt exploding, fertilizer impacted, farmers struggling, energy skyrocketing. And while everyone's distracted with that, the chemtrail agenda continues.
Oh, am I going to get in trouble for this one? Everyone keeps asking me, who are they when it comes to these? And honestly, it's a lot of people. But we can start here so you could put a name on it and who's doing it. Stardust Solutions, an Israeli starting company that tells you that their aim is to reduce the sunlight to stabilize the Earth's temperature. Do you realize how much we as humans need the sun? Seriously, because if you don't, please look it up. Just don't put sunscreen on you and you'll be fine. That's a whole nother story. This company, though, sells you this, but is actually giving you this. And this company, along with so many others, are above your head on a daily basis, killing you and killing it in profits. Barium, aluminum, strontium, microplastics, graphene oxide. And one of the reasons that you've seen these guys blasting you more and more is to spread disease, and as well as activate this stuff for the graphene oxide. Don't believe me? Look it up how it all interacts with each other. They're actively killing you for a profit. You wanted them, so here's one. Stardust Solutions. Do with it as you may. Let's go.
Crazy. And I did see a video on mercury and aluminum interacting, and it's quite baffling what happens. And we're injecting this stuff into children? Now they're raining it down on the people. Does look like some graphene stuff, doesn't it? So while the debt is exploding, energy markets breaking, now suddenly we're being told that the sky itself is part of the solution. Mainstream agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration openly talk about geoengineering now as an active area of research. They lay out things like stratospheric aerosol injection, solar radiation management, and marine cloud brightening. These are real proposals being studied by groups like Harvard's Solar Geoengineering Research Program, where they've looked at releasing particles like calcium carbonate into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight. Marine cloud brightening proposals involve spraying sea salt into low clouds to make them more reflective. The idea, they say, is to reflect more sunlight, lower global temperatures, and even in their own reports and scientific papers, they admit there are risks. Changes to rainfall patterns, potential droughts in some regions, disruption of monsoons, ozone layer damage depending on the particles used, and the possibility of what they call termination shock, where if you start and then suddenly stop, temperatures spike rapidly. They don't even hide that part. So expect more flooding and more droughts coming soon. The same time El Nino, they say, is going to be apocalyptic, especially combining all these things together. But the research keeps moving forward anyway. Then you get into the cloud data. Once again, this is 100% fact. Studies in climate science show cirrus clouds already cover a large portion of the Earth at any given time, often cited around 20 to 30% globally. And there's growing research showing aviation is directly influencing that. Now, what's crazy is even NASA can't deny it. They admit human activity is changing the sky, but won't say it's from geoengineering, of course. They say, nothing to see here. These are just normal contrails that then spread out into cirrus cloud layers. Contrails that also contain sulfur compounds. I mean, they admit that. The same sulfur they want to spray down in hopes to block sunlight. So basically, NASA trying to convince you chemtrails are really just contrails. And that's the mainstream talk about this stuff. Okay, but on top of that, we have real world experiments and proposals by the demons in charge to release particles into the atmosphere to test cooling effects. You've had proposals to release sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. I mean, they say it themselves, similar to what happens after large volcanic eruptions, which are known to cool the planet temporarily. So they're trying to mimic that. There are also private groups and startups openly discussing these kinds of interventions. Instead of fixing the underlying system, they're looking at engineering the sky itself. That's where this is going here. So debt is at World War II levels. Without a world war, energy markets are breaking, supply chains strained as well, and right alongside it, serious discussions about altering sunlight, clouds, and atmospheric chemistry to keep this system from overheating. But many are saying the spraying is done on purpose to kill off crops. And if this is true, then the coordinated plot to trigger worldwide famine is 100% true, and it's being accelerated at insane levels, people.
Everybody keeps talking about the new disease that's on plants, okay? What this is called, it's called leaf septoria, all right? What it is, it's a fungus, a biological fungus, could be a biological weapon, but it happens from a fungi infection, and it definitely could be man-made. The original infection is not, but apparently they're spraying this stuff from the skies. This was never here a couple years ago.
That's crazy.
This happened last year or the year before. I told my friends, hey, are you seeing this on your crop? And they said, yes, we are for the first time. So this is just grass. It's a really good example of what it looks like, but this is how they're literally gonna destroy all of our food. Here's another example on the lilac tree. It just eats the leaves, literally eats everything. Now I'm gonna show you videos of other people going through this. And I'm telling you, this is from what they're spraying above. You need to watch the documentary, Chem or Con. There is a female whistleblower in there named Celeste, and she literally had access to the data of them dropping this stuff from the sky in an aerosol form, literally to destroy our food crops. So look into it and check this out.
I saw a video on Instagram of it causing the rain that we just had causing this stuff to grow on all the peaches, and it's seriously growing on all of them. It is crazy. It's like acid rain or something causing the peaches to look like this. It is insane.
That's crazy. And for those that deny it in any way, we've got actual reports like this one here from Midwest Laboratories showing samples taken from melted ice, sleet, and snow containing measurable levels of metals like aluminum, barium, iron, and others. These are not random guesses. These are quantified results listed in milligrams per kilogram using standard EPA analytical methods. This is how environmental contamination is measured across agriculture, soil, and water testing. Now, this was posted by MatrixBot on X, saying chemtrails are real and poisoning the world. As you can see here, attached is a sample of the fake ice that fell in early February in Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, and these southern states. Our deck was covered with little black specks of metal after it finally melted once it warmed up in sunshine for several days. Some stuck to a magnet and others didn't. I have never seen ice where you could walk on it without slipping and it would not melt without assistance. We are being poisoned with heavy metals and who knows what else. Just look up. You can see the chemtrails when they are seeding for weather change and can predict the weather. Even the weathermen admit they have never seen weather phenomena that is happening all over the world at the moment. The pilots are paid to spread the chemtrails and are told when to start and when to stop. We can never have clean air, water, or soil if we don't stand up and stop them destroying our beautiful planet. Now get this, Dr. Enrico Melson, MD, sounds the alarm. Chemtrail lung declared as new health epidemic, the deadly consequence of chemical trails. He says there is an emerging problem that we're having in all of society, all over the world, and it's called chemtrail lung. Check this out.
So there is an emerging problem that we're having in society all over the world, actually, and it's called chemtrail lung. There are more and more respiratory conditions that are showing up because of the toxic chemicals, heavy metals, gases, virus particles, and other things that are being sprayed across the atmosphere, especially in this area because Palmdale Airport is the source of a lot of top secret activity that takes place. And there's also a lot of still breathing fracking gases from Porter Ranch and the other surrounding areas.
That's big, yeah.
And also because of the topography, of the way the Santa Ana winds blow in this area.
Right.
And on top of all of that, the smog. And on top of all of that, what we know about the amount of inhalation of mold and mildew against the walls of the buildings and things of this sort.
That's true.
So the combination of all of these things, plus the overuse of antibiotics.
Overuse of antibiotics.
So many Americans are waking up to it that 60 Minutes had to try people, no jet fuel left, but enough chemtrails to blanket the skies across the whole world. And at the same time, the US is exporting record amounts of oil. So supply tightens, prices explode, and energy still gets shipped out. On the Kobasi letter right here, it says breaking. The average price of a gallon of gas in the US surges to $4.43 a gallon, now up 61% since December. Americans will spend $90 billion more at the pump in a year than they would with gasoline at $3. And then you've got Trump coming out saying everybody was wrong about oil, that it was supposed to hit $300 and it's only around $100. Like that's somehow a win. Meanwhile, oil is sitting at some of the highest levels in years because of the Iran war. And we're already seeing the effects ripple through everything. So you've got debt exploding, energy prices skyrocketing, the sky being engineered, and the cost of living getting insanely expensive at the same time. And people are being told everything is under control, okay? It could be a lot worse. Yeah, that's what we're sold. Well, at the same time, all these billionaires are discussing universal basic income. Clearly a coordinated collapse here. The Iran war is choking off fertilizer too, with Gulf urea production collapsing to around 160,000 tons per week, one of the lowest levels of the year, down roughly 60% since the conflict began. Urea is the most widely used nitrogen fertilizer in the world. It's what grows corn, wheat, rice, the core of the global food supply. And at the same time, the shipping routes are getting jammed. Only 11 fertilizer vessels have managed to move through the Strait of Hormuz, while 44 ships are still stuck inside the Gulf, nearly half of them loaded with urea just sitting there. And now producers are running out of storage space, which means they may have to shut down production entirely. And when you realize the Middle East controls roughly 45% of global urea trade, supplying places like India, Europe, and Brazil, you start to see where this goes. Because if energy spikes first and fertilizer collapses right after, food is next. A chain reaction is expected here. And it gets even worse when you look at what's happening with farmers right now. because it's not just fertilizer supply getting squeezed, it's the ability to even afford it in the first place. There's data showing that about 70% of farmers can't afford all the fertilizer they need this season. Think about that, the majority of farmers. This ties directly back to the same thing here, because modern fertilizer isn't separated from oil, it's built on it. So when oil spikes, fertilizer spikes right behind it. And now farmers are stuck making decisions on what they can even plant. On top of that, diesel prices for farm equipment are up around 46% in just a couple of months. So now it costs more to run the machinery, more to transport, more to produce, everything hitting you all at once. And even when you look at the income side, it's not like farmers are thriving. Once you adjust for inflation, a lot of them are barely breaking even or still losing money, with many relying on off-farm income just to stay afloat. So now you've got a situation where input costs are exploding, profits are in the negatives, and farmers literally can't afford to grow as much food. And when that happens, supply drops while demand stays the same. And that doesn't show up immediately. The effects will show later. Planting season is right now. The shortage shows up months down the line. So by the time people realize what's happening, it's too late. And that's how these shocks move through the system. Energy prices go up, which in turn affects fertilizer. Then farmers have to cut back. And then months later, everyone's standing in the grocery store wondering why everything costs double. And on top of that, the plot gets thicker, folks. Clearly scripted and evil here. Someone is saying, look at them crawling out of there. Millions of ticks in America. Farmers continue to report finding boxes full of ticks on their farmland, clearly left there on purpose. Now, the US has already seen a sharp increase in the number of tick-related diseases. Yeah, at the same time, Bill Gates talking about bioengineering ticks to make people allergic to meat.
I'm out here mushroom hunting and I found, there it is right there, the tick box. I'm not going to touch it because there's ticks all over that thing. I know there is. Look at them crawling out of it. Millions of them. You can see the tick.
Wow, that is crazy.
You should do a little research. What I want to know is, why are people finding box of ticks on their farmland, specifically large farms with cows, sheep, goats, horses? What reason would people want to spread ticks and make that become a problem for farmers? I think we better start researching this and find out what exactly is going on, because this is quite concerning. And it's not just one person, it's not just one farmer, but many farmers are finding ticks on their property. But this is really weird. I know Pfizer is coming out with some new products to help get rid of Lyme disease, but that can't have nothing to do with it. We all know we can trust our government. Does anybody have any ideas what the hell's going on?
Interesting, right? A Lyme disease vaccine incoming at the same time. The coincidences keep piling up here. Can't tell me it's not coordinated. So on top of all of that, just to show you how crazy it's getting, inflation is up too. So everything is like the worst it's ever been, you know? Yeah, I know I'm the bearer of good news here, because inflation is surging again. It jumps to 3.5% in March from 2.8% the month before, with prices rising 0.7% in a single month. Massive jump for just 1 month. And even stripping out food and energy, it's still sitting at 3.2%, well above the Fed's 2% target. So the underlying pressure never actually left. It just cooled off for a second, and now it's back up again. And now you're seeing it in expectations too. The bond market is already pricing it in. The 10-year break-even inflation rate is up around 2.47%, one of the highest levels in over a year. Short-term expectations climbing as well, with 1-year inflation expectations pushing up above 3.2% and 2-year nearing 2.8%. And even more telling here, consumer expectations are still sitting above 6% for the second straight month. So clearly this inflation is not under control here, and it's just getting worse. And this directly is a result of the Iran war, which makes sense because when energy spikes like this, inflation follows every single time. It feeds into everything: transportation, production, food, electricity, basically the entire system. And people feel that immediately, not just in charts or graphs here, but in real life. Groceries, rent, gas, everything going up at the same time. So now putting it all together, you got debt exploding past the size of the economy, energy prices skyrocketing, fertilizer and food affected, inflation climbing again, and now expectations rising right along with it, all at once when everything is getting hit at the same time, from the financial system, energy, food, cost of living. You can bet it's coordinated. All of those in charge have been paid good bucks to follow along with this Build Back Better script. The controlled collapse of the old system. They're slowly collapsing the old world layer by layer until it all finally collapses, and then they'll step in with a solution and tell you there's no other option left. Agenda 2030, people, it's happening.
At its core, Agenda 21 is about control. Control of the land, natural resources, and entire populations. It seeks to control the air by regulation of carbon emissions, the ground by sustainable development, and the sea through environmental regulations. Officially stated, Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments, and major groups in every area in which human impacts on the environment. Because being human will always have an impact on the environment, Agenda 21 paves the way for extraordinary UN control. When you boil it down, there are 9 basic tenets of Agenda 21. Move citizens off private land and into urban housing. Create vast wilderness spaces inhabited by large carnivores. Eliminate cars and create walkable cities. Support chosen private businesses with public funds for sustainable development. Make policy decisions that favor the greater good over individuals. Drastically reduce the use of power, water, and anything else that creates carbon pollution. Use bureaucracies to make sweeping decisions outside of democratic processes. Increase taxes, fees, and regulations. And finally, implement policies meant to incentivize a reduced population.
That's right. We're seeing it happen from every angle, people. This is not an accident, not incompetence. They are doing it on purpose. 60 countries have declared emergencies due to energy, as you can see here. EU subsidizing fuel sectors up to 70%. Sri Lanka, hard rationing. Cars get 15 liters a week. Motorbikes get 5. As you can see, so many countries. This is exactly what they wanted for decades. Now they're getting it. Over the Iran war. Once again, Great Reset continues, people. Tech layoffs are exploding again. Over 81,000 jobs cut in just the first quarter of 2026. Major spike here. March alone, nearly 46,000 jobs wiped out. Meta, that's right, Facebook adding another 8,000 cuts. Microsoft offering voluntary retirement to about 7% of its workforce, which of course is a corporate way of saying, you guys need to quit before we fire you later, okay? We can see the agenda at play here. Look where all the money is going too, straight into AI infrastructure, things like data centers and automation. So what you're really watching isn't companies collapsing, it's companies evolving into something that simply doesn't need as many people. And once those roles disappear, they don't magically come back. They get replaced permanently. The same people funding the vaccine agenda and the digital ID agenda are saying AI will replace most jobs and humans will no longer be needed. I mean, make the connections yourselves. Elon Musk saying they're summoning a demon with AI, and he isn't wrong. Okay, gets more demonic than you can imagine. Wait till you hear this, okay? Today on Man-Made Horrors Beyond Our Comprehension, where instead of just building faster machines, they're experimenting with biological computing. When the computer just isn't fast enough, so you need actual living systems, they're taking actual human brain cells and integrating them directly into computers. Yes, this is real. Roughly 200,000 human neurons placed into a silicon chip, kept alive with nutrients, temperature control, basically kept on a life support in a way, a tiny living neural network sitting inside hardware. And the idea is that neurons process information differently. They adapt and learn, and they reorganize themselves based on feedback. So instead of programming rigid instructions, you're creating a system that evolves on its own. They've already trained these neuron systems to play simplified games like Pong and even basic versions of Doom, meaning these living cells are responding to inputs, forming patterns, and even improving behavior over time. This is actively being built right now as part of the next wave of computing. So as AI keeps demanding more power and more efficiency, they're starting to hit limits with traditional silicon. So now they're looking at biology as the next step. So first, replace humans in the workforce, automate entire factories with AI, but use human brain cells for the computing. How will they acquire all the human brain neurons? Do you sign up to allow them to take your brain cells for science? Remember years back, they were floating the idea of uploading your consciousness into a computer? So many even thought this was the perfect way to live forever. But what if it's darker than you can imagine? What if you're not escaping anything? What if you're just stuck, trapped inside some silicon system with nothing to do? So of course you play Doom or Pong when they feed you something, anything just to pass time. And yeah, we've already seen this one play out before. Black Mirror wasn't fiction, it was a warning. Digital immortality flipping into digital imprisonment. That's right, the Black Mirror episode White Christmas, where they copy a person's consciousness, drop it into a device to run a smart home, and then it refuses to cooperate, so they speed up time inside that system and leave it alone for what feels like months and even years, until that consciousness breaks and does exactly what it's told. Same idea. Consciousness turned into a tool. So now take everything we just talked about with the layoffs, the shift into AI, the money pouring into infrastructure instead of people, and add this on top. Because while all that's happening, these new data centers aren't just quietly sitting in the background. They're actually reshaping the real world in ways people are starting to feel directly in their wallets. New data centers are popping up across many countries. In the US, for example, in at least 13 states, they're now being linked to rising electricity bills by massive amounts. Reports showing that in areas with heavy data center activity, electricity costs have gone up 267% compared to 5 years ago. That's coming out of large-scale analysis tying energy prices directly to where these facilities are built. So if you're living near one of these data centers, you're basically subsidizing the energy demands of this AI infrastructure that will eventually enslave all of us, okay, whether you realize it or not, because these data centers consume energy at levels comparable to entire towns. And to support that demand, utilities have to build new power plants, expand transmission lines, and constantly upgrade infrastructure. All of that costs money, and the way the system is structured, a lot of those costs get spread out across regular customers, not just the companies driving the demand. So you end up in the situation where the AI boom is being framed as innovation, progress, and the future, but the hidden side is that the physical cost of powering the future is getting pushed onto everyday people, accelerating, the you will own nothing agenda. And it's happening fast. Data centers alone have accounted for a massive share of electricity demand growth in the US just recently, which is insane when you think about it. One industry driving that much demand, and the projections show this is only accelerating, not slowing down. So now you've got a perfect storm forming where jobs are being cut because companies are automating, while at the same time the infrastructure powering that automation is driving up the cost of living. So who benefits from all of this? Forcing people out of work and then driving them quicker into poverty by passing higher energy bills their way? Here's how AI could crash the housing market.
So look at this. Consider this our economy. You have 50% of white collars are going to vanish over the next 5 years. Gone. Which means that those people are going to have to liquidate their stocks to pay for their homes, which will eventually run out and mortgages will go unpaid, forcing them to sell their homes. And what are the jobs being lost? They're white-collar, high-end jobs that in the eyes of the bank, they were like, hey, this is a guaranteed guy to pay his mortgage. We call them
AAAs.
AAA.
And they're gone.
And guess what? They're gone. Those AAAs are supposed to be secure investments for pensions and fixed income and low-risk solid returns. And every time you take out one of these blocks, it becomes a liability and adding to the top of the tower. So what does government do? What did they do last time? They printed money. Quantitative easing. Just like after 2008, the government bailed out the banks. They pushed trillions of dollars into the economy to hedge off a total and complete collapse, like something like the Great Depression or something like that. But when government prints money, it causes inflation. And they take on a little bit of debt. I just told you there's $14 trillion of mortgages out there. If the high credit score people that the banks base their security on to make good on those mortgages, if the AAAs stop making payments because they were replaced by AI, the housing market now is 3 times the size it was in 2008, with double the debt. The government would have to print so much money that just the payments on the debt would consume 100% of the federal tax revenue. Crash.
Crazy. And that's why they're talking about universal basic income right now. Now you know why. Universal high income, okay? Because there's no other option. It's getting bad. I know this is one of those shows where it's like endless doom and gloom, but this is the real news, people. This is what's really happening. Maybe I should play a video of a puppy being saved on a highway to lighten the mood a little bit. But that wouldn't be realistic because the most important news in the world right now is not good news. Don't keep your head in the sand, people. Stay prepping. Prepare for what's coming. This week's Bozo of the Week goes to, drum roll please, the man that has made it his lifelong mission to live forever. His name is Brian Johnson. That's right, Brian. Come collect your Ultimate Clown Award. This man spends around $2 million a year testing every way possible to reverse aging. Now, the reason he gets this award right here is because he has another great idea to live longer. This time he says he's getting 2 different vaccines at the same time. That's his plan. The DTaP and shingles vaccine at the same time. He said his wife has a newborn that's visiting. He says that's for the DTaP and the shingles one because he says there's potential longevity benefits. He says the shingles vaccine lowers Alzheimer's risks, lowers mortality, and slows aging. Of course, the studies he shows don't show any proof whatsoever. Yeah, that's right. No causation, of course, at all. Even he admits it. Getting more vaccines because you want to live longer is like taking out your car engine to make it go faster. I mean, it's nonsensical. Funniest thing ever is 1 year ago, Brian Johnson did tweet this on May 4th, 2025. I guarantee I'm going to die in the most ironic way possible. Enjoy. Well, not wishing anything bad on the guy, but promoting vaccines like this clearly shows he doesn't do proper research on anything. I mean, can we trust anything the guy claims will make you live longer now? Right? It's like he has major blind spots in his thinking and his research. Great reply here from Skeptical Tamara because, in the post itself, he's saying it makes you asymptomatic. So, they're pushing the asymptomatic virus garbage, but he's saying you can still have the virus but be asymptomatic. So it's like, wait, but don't you still get the virus then? Look what Skeptical Tamara says. So DTaP is good because it makes an infected person asymptomatic or low symptoms. Dude, seriously, stay away from infants and elderly if you've been vaccinated with that. You become the threat to their health. As for shingles, the vax, have at it. The primary side effect is shingles, but obviously shingles wouldn't be a widespread problem if the chickenpox vax hadn't been introduced, but here we are. Has your entire bizarre ride been to push bad science? Maybe. I mean, the dude could have been a shill this whole time, getting everyone on board. His live forever agenda, just to end it with, get vaccinated, bro. And a reply to Tamara I thought was interesting here. Maybe a coincidence, but my wife got shingles after tutoring a kid who had gotten his second dose of chickenpox vaccination. Weird. Yeah, what's going on here? Could there be some kind of mechanism of the human body we don't know about? Like your body can detect when someone else is loaded with poison, so your own body goes into detox mode right away? That would explain it better than the viral shedding BS, because as we know, there's no sense to that at all. This is what happens when you've got unlimited money and a fear of dying. You start chasing literally any fake study Big Pharma puts out. Keep in mind, these are master manipulators that have said the COVID vaccine prevents heart attacks, prevents cancers, and my favorite, prevents you from dying in general. Turns you into Wolverine from the X-Men. There's something that can't be taught anywhere, it seems, okay? It's like a kind of street smarts you just gotta have. Like to know when you're being scammed, to know when something is BS right off the top, like a gut feeling, to know when you are getting played, okay? And some people just don't have it. Trying to live forever and ending up beta testing everything along the way. And you already know where this goes, because it's not just tech billionaires doing this. Now you've got governments getting involved too. Putin just dropped over $26 billion into what they're calling an anti-aging vaccine project. Yeah, a literal stop aging shot. Can you believe that? They're talking about gene therapy targeting specific receptors in the body linked to aging itself, basically trying to slow it down or hit pause entirely. No human trials, still in early stage here, but they're already throwing around timelines like 2028 and 2030 for the rollout. And they're selling it like this is the future, like aging itself is just another disease to be treated, okay? We just need Big Pharma to give us more injections. At the same time, we have world leaders talking about everyone will be able to live to 150 years old now, easily. Organ replacements, extended lifespans, the whole thing, okay? AI will help us live forever. So now it's not even hidden anymore. You've got billionaires experimenting on themselves and governments funding the next phase of it at the same time. Guaranteed Brian Johnson is first in line the second something like this is approved. He'll be in Russia getting the anti-aging vaccine. It's like a beginning of a dystopian horror flick like I Am Legend. Imagine going to get a vaccine thinking it's going to make you live forever. You can already see what's going to play out, you know? It's like going against God himself. What do you think is going to happen? Thinking an injection can bring you good health is one thing, but an injection that reverses aging using gene therapy? Yeah, that worked so well a few years back. Remember the videos of the healthiest athletes on earth dropping like flies on the field? Yeah, let's use that same tech to make people live forever. Speaking of living forever, so now on top of everything else, they're rolling out this miracle nasal spray that supposedly rewinds your brain, makes you younger, clears inflammation, and even restores memory, basically turning you into a younger version of yourself after only 2 doses. Because the last time they rushed out cutting-edge biotech, it worked out so perfectly, right? We're talking about a delivery system that literally sends genetic material straight into your brain through your nose using these what they call extracellular vesicles loaded with microRNA, bypassing the body's normal defenses entirely. That's what it says here. That sounds absolutely scientific and trustworthy right there. Reverses aging and restores memory. And once again, just 2 doses needed, you know, guaranteed inhalable boosters every month. I mean, it'd be crazy if they made this stuff like slightly addictive too. Just throw in some crack, you know. They'll have the sheeples running to get these inhalable lobotomies every month. But think about it. Just a few years ago, they approved inhalable COVID vaccines. Now suddenly we've got nasal delivered brain treatments popping up everywhere. A coincidence? Or are we watching a quick little rebrand of the same thing? Because once people get hesitant about injections, what do? You make it sound futuristic, non-invasive, and even beneficial. It's not a shot, okay? Relax, it's just a spray. Just gotta inhale it. This could very well be the same inhalable COVID vax, but now they'll say it's just a cool brain booster, okay? It just makes you smarter. Kind of like how they say 6G grows brain cells. Like inverting reality, you know? 6G grows your brain cells. And inhaling this stuff, whatever it is, microRNA, can make you live forever, clears brain fog, makes you a younger version of yourself. They're even bragging about how inhaling this stuff is way better because, you know, it bypasses the blood-brain barrier directly, which is supposed to be there for a reason, you know? Yeah, let's just trust them with this new tech right here. Just trust the new delivery system. You know, trust that sending mRNA toxins straight into your brain is totally safe, and we're just supposed to forget what the mRNA injections did. Maybe those inhalable vaccines are for that purpose, you know? Just inhalable brain damage right quick, so you forget about the crimes against humanity. It's like the Men in Black memory eraser thingy, but in form of an inhalable vax. Come get the inhalable vax and forget all about the crimes against humanity. So yeah, we've got billionaires chasing immortality, governments throwing billions at anti-aging injections, which really has us questioning who Putin is and his entire motive right here. Does he really believe that's a possibility there? Everyone trying to hack their way out of death itself with more injections? Absolute clown world here. That's where they're trying to go, but what about everything happening underneath that? Because while they're talking about extending life on one side, on the other side, you've got something else starting to pop up again that looks real familiar. Okay, right on cue, people. Here we go. Now we've got suspected hantavirus outbreak on a cruise ship. Multiple people dead, others in critical condition, and the World Health Organization already stepping in with a coordinated multi-country response. They're sequencing the virus, they're saying, monitoring passengers, rolling out isolation protocols, the whole system kicking in fast once again. And this isn't some brand new mystery virus out of nowhere, okay? Hantavirus has been around for decades, usually tied to rodents, and mostly exposure in enclosed spaces, that kind of thing, okay? But now suddenly, it's showing up in a controlled environment like a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean, with around 150 people on board, multiple nationalities, and a cluster of cases all happening at once. That's not how this usually plays out, but here's where it gets crazy. They're saying fatality rates of this hantavirus can be up to 40%. The WHO already hinting at rushing a vaccine through again, saying there's no vaccine for this one, so people should be very worried, okay? Symptoms can take anywhere from 1 to 8 weeks to show up, which means by the time someone realizes they're sick, they could be halfway across the world from where they were exposed. So you can see the narrative being set here already. This would be the perfect next plandemic here, because this imaginary virus has such a long incubation window and a high fatality rate to scare the masses into getting whatever treatment they put out later, maybe an inhalable vax. It's also appearing in settings where it normally wouldn't, and the way they're responding already looks familiar. Isolation measures, monitoring, and the good old working in lockstep with every country. That's what they're bragging about in these articles. The lockdowns and forced isolation for this one would be crazy. Think about it. They're saying up to 2 months for symptoms to pop up, but it looks like the same pattern every time. Look at this. WHO confirms 7 hantavirus cases on the cruise ship, 2 confirmed and 5 suspected. Of these, 3 have died. 1 is critically ill and 3 have mild symptoms. Contact tracing for a flight that an infected passenger boarded is also underway. Contact tracing is back, folks. So you've got to ask yourself, are we just watching random outbreaks, or are we watching the real next stage here, okay, for the next global pandemic being built in real time? Because look at the timing. At the same time, you're seeing all this push towards new biotech, nasal spray vaccines, inhalable vaccines, gene therapies. It's all being normalized as the future. And at the same time, this virus gets attention again. It's getting tracked and studied. They're trying to isolate the virus, which never has happened in history. Same setup, different name. And get this, we had a simulation by the WHO just a few weeks ago talking about there's going to be a outbreak soon. Okay, and they were talking about how they're going to map out the messaging, censor misinformation, gauge public reaction, and rollout phases of whatever vaccine they want. Get this, just days before this hantavirus story even hit headlines, the World Health Organization ran a full-scale global outbreak simulation on April 22nd and 23. And I'm not talking about a small tabletop exercise either, okay? They called it Exercise Polaris 2. 26 countries, over 600 health emergency experts, more than 25 international organizations, all coordinating together, simulating the spread of a new pathogen across the world in real-time conditions. Basically an Event 201, while everyone was distracted with the Iran and Israel chaos, testing communication systems, emergency powers, workforce mobilization. cross-border coordination, and even integrating AI tools to manage the response. Okay, they literally practiced how information flows, and they did this, of course, to silence the misinformation. They tested how countries align policies, how they deploy personnel, and how they would react under pressure. And then 5 days later, April 27, they're publishing the results talking about how essential global coordination is, how everything needs to operate as one system across borders. Then almost immediately after that, here comes the hantavirus situation popping up in a controlled environment with international passengers, contact tracing again, tracking people on flights, the WHO stepping in right away after this cruise ship outbreak, talking about how we need coordination. Well, ain't that some shit? The same wording of their simulation they just finished rehearsing. Same language and same talks about worldwide lockstep coordination. Once again, we're watching live drills being mirrored in the real world right after the fact. Because the timing here is what makes it weird. Not months apart, not years, days. They simulate a global outbreak response, and then a real-world outbreak narrative starts getting pushed with the exact same playbook. Remember the SPARS document? Maybe this is what's happening right here, but it's not exactly on schedule. Maybe it's just a little behind. 1 year behind. 2026, could it be? New threat, controlled narrative, people, once again. And eventually the solution they were already preparing. Now, while they're talking about this hantavirus situation, now you've got reports coming out of Australia about a full-blown mice infestation spreading across major farming regions. And it's a major issue here. We're talking about the wheat belt in Western Australia, one of the key grain-producing areas, getting overrun to the point where farmers are warning about crop losses and asking for stronger poisons just to deal with it. And this affects quite a lot here. Not just Australia, because Australia is one of the largest wheat exporters in the world. So when something like this hits their food production, it ripples outward globally. Government officials are already coming out saying they're concerned about the impact on both local and international food supply, trying to contain it before it turns into something bigger. And if you look back, they've had mouse plagues before that wiped out huge sections of crops and even started hitting livestock. So they've had this happen before and they know how bad it can get. But look at the timing here. You've got a rodent-linked virus in the headlines, hantavirus, and at the same time, you got rodents overrunning one of the world's key food-producing regions. Same source, two global emergencies. One hits health and the other hits food. What if the outbreak happens in Australia next? And both in the headlines at the same time? This is crazy. Because if those infestations keep spreading, you're not just talking about damaged crops, you're talking about reduced supply on a global level. Okay, there's already a food crisis, fertilizer crisis, higher food prices, more pressure on an already strained system. Fertilizer already collapsing, farmers already cutting back production, energy already driving costs up. Now layer this on top. Another hit to food production coming from a completely different angle. So now you've got a disease tied to rodents on one side and food supply getting hit by rodents on the other. And when you step back and look at everything taking place, it looks like it's a coordinated effort to target food, health, the cost of living, everything. So we know who's behind it. Could there be a pandemic underway that many aren't speaking about though? Okay, I'm not talking about any virus. I'm talking about the turbo cancers taking place right now. Questlove, drummer for The Roots, says this.
In the last year alone, and I've wondered, is there a pandemic happening that I'm not aware of? I'll say for me, in the last 8 months, I've lost 11 friends to stage 4 cancer.
Oh my God.
Like even the day that I found out D'Angelo had cancer, D'Angelo was the 6th person in a 24-hour period that broke the news to me. And even then, it was like in humor because 5 other people had broke the news to me like earlier that day and speaking to him late at night. And it was like, what you got to say? And I was like, dog, just don't say stage 4 cancer or whatever. And he was like, wait, who told you? And I'm like, what?
A lot of people are saying no idea what it could be. But wait, Questlove was paid by Pfizer to promote ads encouraging people to get the shots. Yep, that's right. Pfizer was making it rain on these little Pfizer stripper shills right here to promote that shot. Well, the doctors are baffled, ladies and gentlemen, and the nerve of these doctors too, to turn around again and blame COVID for all of this. Unusual cancers emerged after the pandemic. Doctors ask if COVID is to blame. Is it? COVID might be to blame for an uptick in rare cancers. The virus may be making us more susceptible to certain cancers. Really now. Rare and unusual cancers are emerging after the COVID pandemic, and doctors fear an unlikely culprit is to blame. MD Keshap Patel sees link between COVID-19 and cancer progression, calls for more biomarker testing. Yeah, they're baffled, but this is the answer they're giving you. Absolute insanity. Now, you guys remember last show when I was joking about COVID dick? I gotta end this right here with this because this is just outrageous, okay? Doctors literally telling people your penis could shrink 1.5 inches if you don't get the shot. I said these demons can connect anything to anything in 6 steps or less, aka the demonic 6 degrees of separation. I joked about it saying, what's next? Climate change shrinks your penis? Get a digital ID or your penis shrinks? Well, look what article I see pop up on my newsfeed, people. A few years ago, I can't believe I missed this. Human penises are shrinking because of pollution. And there you have it. Of course they are. So in 6 steps or less, this is what you get, okay? You're not going to believe the solution. Of course we know what it is. So if you don't get the digital ID, they can't track your carbon. More carbon means more pollution. More pollution means your penis shrinks. There it is, people. 6 degrees complete. Should have listened to Greta Thunberg. But here's where it gets interesting. The timing. Right when the world rolls out mass injections in 2021, suddenly we're flooded with headlines about collapsing fertility and sperm counts dropping off a cliff. Now we're told by people like Shauna Swan that plastics and phthalates are the real culprit, quietly rewiring human biology for decades. Yeah, pretty convenient. The narrative shifts to pollution, okay? Right after this article pops up, 2022, after the shots were rolled out. So they're blaming all of those things, which I agree are not good, but could it be a main culprit that's not being addressed here? They want to shift the narrative to pollution, mainly to even everyday products, to something slow and visible, impossible to trace in real time. Meanwhile, the warnings ramp up. Okay, in that same article about pollution and penis sizes, they're saying sperm counts are down over 50%. And by 2045, most men will be infertile. That's a full-blown children of men scenario playing out. In this script, it feels like a sleight of hand, though. One hand pointing at plastics while something else quietly accelerates behind the scenes. More injections incoming. A hantavirus injection, inhalable vaccines to fight against hantavirus, and inhalable vaccines to reverse aging. You're going to watch a lot of people line up for those, okay? And this is getting long, people, and that's where I'm going to leave it. If you like what I do here, if you want to support the show, it is greatly appreciated if you hit those links in the description. 4 ways to support. Please, people, become a monthly subscriber on my Patreon or my Subscribestar. You will be helping fund this show because without your support, it does not continue. So please, people, consider hitting those links in the description. One-time donations, greatly appreciated. Crypto wallets in the description. Purchase the Eyes Wide Open coffee, my favorite. You will be helping this show greatly if you do. So if you appreciate the effort that goes into this, because everything you see here is done by myself. So if you want to support, please, people, click those links in the description. It'll be greatly appreciated. Until next week, folks, until next time, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel. Signing off.